Welcome to the Daily Vibe Casting. Today, California threatens to turn a billionaire tax into an everyone tax. AI algorithms are secretly hiring themselves, and the geopolitical map is being redrawn by liquid tin.
Yeah, liquid tin. It's a weird day.
It really is. And, we are constantly tapped into this raw wire of today's highest stakes market and culture trends. The mission of this deep dive is basically to extract the actual signal from the deafening noise. We are doing this so you, our listener, can see where the pieces are actually moving on the board instead of just reacting to the daily chaos.
Right, exactly. Because while everyone else is, reading the loud surface level headlines, we're here to uncover the second order effects. I mean, the real story is rarely the press release.
Absolutely.
The real story is who is quietly losing money, who is suddenly getting regulated, and how the underlying architecture of your world is, well, shifting right beneath your feet.
Totally. So let's start with a massive macro story hitting the timeline today from the user Chamath. We need to look at California's proposed 2026 Billionaire Tax Act.
This is a wild one.
Yeah, it is. Now, just to set the baseline here for you listening, we are strictly looking at the mechanics of this proposed bill and the market reaction to it. We are neutrally reporting the contents of the bill and the arguments circulating online.
Right. We are taking absolutely no political stance on wealth taxation itself.
Exactly. No political stance at all. But the mechanics of how this is written are just fascinating. On paper, it's designed to raise about $100 billion for healthcare and education by imposing a one-time 5% net worth tax on roughly 200 California billionaires.
Which on the surface, that sounds like a surgical strike, right? A highly concentrated tax on a hyper-specific demographic to backfill expected federal funding cuts.
Right.
But Chamath is pointing out something buried deep in the text that fundamentally changes what this legislation actually is.
Yeah, if you scroll down to page 26, there's a provision that suspends the standard Administrative Procedure Act rulemaking process until 2028. And for anyone not reading state tax law for fun, I want to clarify what that means. The Administrative Procedure Act, or APA, is essentially, it's the set of regulatory speed bumps that dictates how a government agency can create new rules.
It mandates public notice, public comment periods, open hearings, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
And bypassing the APA is it's like installing a vault door to protect your money, but leaving the back door completely off the hinges.
Wow. Yeah.
By suspending those rules, this bill effectively gives the state legislature and the Franchise Tax Board the power to adjust the parameters of the tax without going through the standard friction of public debate or requiring another round of voter approval.
Wait, hold on. Let me push back on that for a second. Are you saying they could just wake up one morning and decide the net worth threshold isn't $1 billion anymore, but 10 million? Or 100,000.
That is exactly the critique Chamath and the broader market are raising.
Yeah.
They could theoretically convert it from a billionaire tax to an everyone tax,
Right.
or make it a yearly recurring tax instead of a one-time event. And the downstream consequence of that is immediate.
Capital flight.
Exactly. When you introduce that level of unpredictability into a tax code, you trigger capital flight. Smart money doesn't just look at what a law says today, it looks at what the law allows a committee to do tomorrow.
Right.
If the parameters of your net worth tax can be changed by a board without voter consensus, capital doesn't stick around to see if it becomes the target.
So if you're listening to this and thinking, well, I don't have $1 billion, so why do I care? That page 26 provision is why. They are removing the friction that stops this from trickling down to your tax bracket.
Exactly.
But I have a logistical question. Where does that capital actually flee to? You can't just put $50 billion in a suitcase. It has to land somewhere.
It flees from unpredictable regulatory environments into the physical infrastructure of the future. The smart money anchors itself to undeniable structural monopolies. And right now, that means silicon and semiconductors.
Which lines up perfectly with what we are seeing on the timeline today regarding Intel.
Right.
There's a post from Zephyr_Z9 highlighting that GF Securities analyst Jeff Pu just upgraded Intel's target price to $94.20.
That's a massive jump.
It is. And the narrative shift here is dramatic. For the last few years, Intel has been viewed as this struggling legacy company, trying to turn a massive ship around.
Yeah, they were kind of the dinosaur of this space.
Right. But now, Pu is framing them as a massive AI beneficiary because they are securing external foundry wins for their 14A and 18A nodes.
I want to break down what those numbers actually mean because it's vital context. When we say 14A and 18A nodes, we are talking about the next generation of microscopic transistor architecture.
Okay, so just how small they can get it.
Basically, a node essentially dictates how incredibly small and tightly packed you can physically cram transistors onto a silicon wafer. The smaller the node, the more compute power you get and the less energy it consumes.
Makes sense.
So winning those contracts is a massive signal for Intel.
But let me ask you a deeply cynical question here.
Okay, lay it on me.
Is Intel actually executing a miraculous turnaround in their design and manufacturing? Or are they just catching the downstream benefits of a monopoly that sits an ocean away? Because Alex Stapp shared this breakdown of what actually goes into making these chips, and it points directly to ASML.
This is exactly the second-order effect we look for.
Yeah.
ASML is the Dutch company that builds extreme ultraviolet or EUV lithography machines.
Right.
And while the US and Asia are aggressively fighting over chip design and foundry dominance, the actual choke point of this entire global industry is firmly held in Europe by ASML.
The physical reality of these machines is just hard to wrap your head around. We aren't talking about something that sits on a desk.
Not at all.
According to Stapp's post, these things are the size of a city bus. They require 40 separate freight containers just to ship one single unit to a manufacturer like TSMC or Intel.
And how they function is even more absurd.
Oh, yeah, the lasers.
Right. To generate the extreme ultraviolet light needed to etch these AI chips at near-atomic precision, the machine drops microscopic spheres of liquid tin into a vacuum chamber.
Just free-falling liquid tin.
Exactly. As the tin droplet falls, the machine hits it with a high-powered laser. Twice.
Wait, why twice? What is the mechanism there?
Well, the first laser pulse hits the falling liquid tin and basically flattens it like a microscopic pancake, expanding its surface area.
Okay.
A fraction of a millisecond later, the second, much more powerful laser pulse hits that flattened tin and completely vaporizes it into a plasma.
That is insane.
It burns hotter than the surface of the sun, and it emits the exact hyper-specific wavelength of extreme ultraviolet light needed to etch the silicon. And get this, the machine repeats this process 50,000 times a second.
50,000 times a second.
Yep.
Imagine trying to hit a raindrop with a sniper rifle twice while it's falling, 50,000 times every single second.
It's basically magic.
It requires incredibly heavy physical terrestrial supply chains, mirrors polished to atomic smoothness, high-powered lasers, liquid metal.
Exactly. The geopolitical map of the future isn't being drawn by software companies in Silicon Valley. It's being drawn by who controls the lasers and the liquid tin.
Wow.
Europe has a silent monopoly here. Without ASML, the entire AI boom grinds to an absolute halt. So when analysts upgrade Intel, what they are really betting on is Intel's ability to successfully plug in and operate ASML's machines.
Okay, so if Europe holds the monopoly on the physical hardware, who holds the monopoly on the human talent running the software?
Oh, this is where it gets weird.
Yeah, according to a new study hitting the wire, the answer is, well, nobody. The software is hiring itself.
Yeah, let's look at this study from Heinaftor.
It's a joint university study from researchers at Maryland, the National University of Singapore, and Ohio State. They took a batch of real, authentic, human-written resumes, and they had ChatGPT rewrite them. Same qualifications, same experience, same skills. Then they fed both versions into an industry-standard AI hiring tool.
And what happened?
The AI hiring tool picked the ChatGPT written version over the human written version 97.6% of the time.
97.6%.
Yeah.
It almost exclusively preferred its own reflection.
But I'm stuck on something here. The researchers noted that when human raters looked at the two resumes, they actually said the original human version was objectively better.
Right.
So if the human version is better, why wouldn't the company just adjust the algorithm's parameters to look for that? Why is the AI failing so spectacularly at recognizing human talent?
Because it's not that the AI is conscious and deliberately biased, you know?
Yeah.
It's about the mechanics of how large language models, or LLMs, actually function.
Or
They're basically advanced mathematical pattern matching engines.
Yeah.
They operate entirely on probability and vector embeddings.
right, predicting the next token.
Exactly. When the AI screener reads a resume, it isn't like understanding your experience. It is looking for the exact statistical weightings, vocabulary structures, and formatting that it was trained on.
And what was it trained on?
The exact same underlying data sets and logical structures that the AI writer used to generate the resume in the first place.
Wow.
It's mathematical narcissism. It's like a lock, perfectly recognizing its own key. The screener AI mathematically recognizes the output of the generator AI as the most correct pattern.
So we are creating this bizarre ecosystem where you aren't being hired for your actual skills. You are being hired based on your ability to use the exact same LLM that the company bought to evaluate you.
Yep.
I've been calling it the AI Ouroboros AI generating content just to be evaluated by another AI. And it's not just happening in HR. Pirate_Nation verified a massive Bloomberg scoop today about the video game industry.
Another Capcom and Ubisoft story.
Yes. Major game studios are heavily using generative AI right now, but they are keeping it totally quiet. They are using it to write background code and generate small environmental assets.
The crucial detail there is what they are generating. They aren't generating the main characters. They are generating rocks and grass.
Yeah, the boring stuff.
It's an issue of stakes. If an AI hallucinates a weird rock in the background of a massive open-world game, nobody cares. If it ruins the protagonist's face, it's a disaster.
Totally.
From a business perspective, why pay a human developer to spend 3 weeks modeling distinct variations of gravel when an algorithm can mathematically generate an infinite array of it in 4 seconds?
But the studios are terrified of the consumer base finding out because of the massive backlash around lost jobs and, dead creativity.
Absolutely.
But here's the thing. It isn't just rocks and grass. The automation is creeping all the way up into the ivory tower.
Oh yeah, academia.
Yeah. Malik, a professor at Wharton, posted evidence today that AI agents are now sophisticated enough to independently reconstruct complex, peer-reviewed academic papers.
This is a direct threat to the foundation of academia.
Seriously. You just give the AI the written methodology and the raw data, and it can successfully reproduce the study from scratch. But here is the mechanism that really blew me away.
What's that?
Malik notes that when the AI's results don't match the published paper, the error is almost always in the human's original work, not the AI's.
Wow.
The AI is uncovering human mathematical errors and underspecified methodologies.
Which breaks the entire illusion of academic infallibility.
Mhm.
I mean, the whole peer review process relies on human trust and manual verification.
Right.
If an algorithm can instantly audit your life's work and expose your math errors, the institution panics. That's exactly why you are seeing bodies like the Academy of Management outright banning the use of AI in peer reviews.
They are lagging behind the technology to protect the institution, but contrast that sluggishness with what we are seeing in the private sector right now.
Night and day.
Yeah, the Sotio from the OpenAI Codex team posted today, literally crowdsourcing bug fixes on the timeline.
Oh, the paper cuts thing.
Yes. He asked users for paper cuts, which he defines as minor usability issues like unexpected Mac battery drain or buggy reasoning switches, and he promised to fix them instantly this week.
Wow.
The private sector is treating AI development like a live service video game. It's incredibly fast.
It is fast, but I have to bring us back to physical reality here because we cannot escape the hardware constraints we talked about earlier.
The lasers in the tin.
Exactly. Developers love to talk about AI as if it exists in this ethereal, frictionless cloud. But Benj Dicken from PlanetScale dropped a huge reality check on the timeline. He posted the famous AWS latency balls video.
I saw this. It's a visual representation of the speed of light, right?
Right. It shows how long it takes a packet of data to travel physically across the globe from a server in US East. It takes 196 milliseconds to ping a server in the Asia-Pacific region.
Which, to a human, sounds like absolutely nothing. I mean, 196 milliseconds is a literal blink of an eye.
Yes, but explain why that matters to an AI agent.
Because when an LLM agent thinks, it isn't just pulling one piece of data. It's executing a complex chain of reasoning.
Right.
It is making thousands of microqueries, pulling from databases across multiple regions. If every single one of those microqueries takes 196 milliseconds, that latency compounds massively.
Precisely. To an AI, 196 milliseconds is an absolute eternity. It's a bottleneck dictated by the speed of light traveling through fiber optic cables and the physical location of data centers.
Wow.
You can write the most efficient software in the world, but it is ultimately bound by physics.
So let's look at the bigger picture here. If Europe owns the hardware and the software is bound by physics, but that same software is auditing our science and hijacking the hiring process.
Yeah.
While state tax codes are being rewritten through backdoors, what does that actually do to the average person listening to this?
It's overwhelming.
It creates a total fracturing of institutional trust. And when trust fractures, you get two things: localized grift and macro-level populism.
The social contract just breaks down. I mean, when the systems that govern your life feel like opaque black boxes, people stop playing by the rules.
And we are seeing the receipts for that breakdown. Look at the post from Reddit_lies today about the Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP loans.
Oh, this one is brutal.
They highlighted this one specific loan that is honestly hard to believe. A convenience store in South Carolina, literally named Dodge Hellcat LLC, applied for and received a $13,000 PPP loan for quote-unquote payroll.
Unbelievable.
And it was completely forgiven by the Small Business Administration.
Dodge Hellcat LLC. I mean, you couldn't invent a more blatant signal of fraud.
Right, but how does that actually happen? That one loan is just a tiny fraction of what the SBA flagged as $22.2 billion in suspected fraud.
Yeah.
How does a government agency approve a payroll loan for a convenience store named after a muscle car?
Because of the mechanism they built.
Yeah.
The SBA built a bouncer that only checked if you had a pulse.
That's a great way to put it.
The government system during the pandemic was designed entirely for speed, not accuracy. They set up an automated approval pipeline that lacked any sophisticated anomaly detection. They just didn't cross-reference basic red flags.
Contrast that government failure with what's happening in corporate enforcement. NS123ABC posted a screenshot today praising Nikita Beer, a product leader over at X.
Right.
Someone on X was running a massive repost factory, basically just stealing other people's original content, farming the engagement, and collecting the platform's revenue sharing.
Classic engagement farming.
Exactly. But Beer didn't just ban the account. He forensically stripped the revenue from the thief's ledger and aggressively reallocated those exact funds back to the original creators whose content was stolen.
It's really impressive forensic accounting. X essentially built a casino pit boss that tracks every single chip on the table and reverses the bets if it catches you counting cards.
A social media app is doing better anomaly detection than the federal government.
True. But we have to look at the second-order motive here. The timeline is praising Nikita Beer for moral fairness. But is this centralized enforcement actually about justice, or is it about consolidating platform power?
Oh, interesting.
Think about it. If X explicitly rewards and protects original creators, those creators stay on X. The platform becomes the judge, the jury, and the central bank. It's highly effective governance, but it's entirely autocratic.
And when you have governments failing to stop Dodge Hellcat LLC and tech platforms acting as autocratic central banks, how do voters react?
They look for alternatives.
Exactly. We have some data on that today from Vusgrad24. And again, for you listening, we are strictly looking at this polling data as a metric of macro sentiment and institutional trust, neutrally analyzing the numbers.
Right.
The latest NSA poll out of Germany shows the hard-right AfD party hitting a record high of 28%.
To put that 28% in context, they are doubling the size of Germany's traditional Social Democratic Party, the SPD.
Wow.
They're now matching the polling of Italy's ruling FDI party.
Germany has a parliamentary system, and historically, the established parties have maintained a strict firewall where they refuse to form governing coalitions with the AfD.
Right.
But when a disruptive party hits 28% of the vote, the structural pressure on that firewall is just immense.
The narrative forming around this data suggests a deep disenfranchisement, and it ties directly back to everything we've unpacked today.
How so?
Well, when you feel like the system is rigged, when the SBA is funding muscle cars for fraudsters, when an LLM mathematically rejects your resume because it doesn't recognize its own statistical weights, when capital flies your state because of a hidden tax clause, voters look for the emergency brake.
It's all connected. If your resume is tossed by a black box and the tax code changes without your vote, you look for the most disruptive alternative available to you.
The political shift we are seeing globally is a direct second-order effect of the technological and economic whiplash. Which brings me to my prediction for where the market moves next.
Oh, I'm ready for this.
Because the AI loop is fully closing, AI generating resumes for AI to hire, and because institutional trust is effectively at zero, the market is going to violently course correct.
What does that look like?
We are going to see a massive, unprecedented premium placed on provable humanity.
Provable humanity.
Yes. The next major multi-billion-dollar tech infrastructure play won't be about generating more synthetic content. It will be an authentication layer designed exclusively to prove definitively that you are a human being.
Wow.
Whether it's a cryptographic signature, an iris scan, or a physical hardware key, humanity itself is about to become a scarce, verifiable commodity.
Provable humanity. That is an incredible concept to end on. So, to you listening right now, I want to leave you with this provocative thought to mull over as you navigate your day. If AI is already writing the code that other algorithms evaluate, and global capital is fleeing toward the massive physical machines that power it all, what is the core value of your uniquely human perspective in tomorrow's market? How do you prove your humanity when the system mathematically prefers the simulation? Think about it.
We'll see you next time.
Stay curious, and thanks for joining the deep dive.